This is our rating scale slash probe data sheet. It does say daycare on it, but it can really be used for any group goal, whether that's a classroom or social skills or peer, any kind of goal that you don't really need trial by trial data, or you're busy teaching and engaging and socializing and you just want to have some way to track progress. So this is really neat because it gives you kind of a rubric for how to define progress. And then also it turns into a graph. So I'm going to show you an example. So the first thing to do is define the rating scale. So in this example, the rating scale is from 0 to 5, 0 being very resistant to teaching, all the way through to 100% independent. Now, this could apply to, sitting at circle time. It could apply, how much support do they need? It could apply to completing a morning routine. It could be, responding to peers, any one of those things where, you're going along the continuum of highly prompted all the way to independent. And we'll fill this out, once or twice a day, just to give us an idea of how they're making progress. And then you could also use this when you're writing IEP goals. You could write something like the student will, you know, um, respond to peers independently for 2 days in a row, independently defined as, receiving a 4 or 5 on the data sheet. So the next thing you want to do is choose some targets. So let's say our first target is responds, not liking the R.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't work.
Again. Response to peer. Okay, so that's the first goal. We may write a second goal of, let's say, greets the teacher. And then we may have a third goal of raise his hand during circle time. Okay, so now, you spend your day or your morning circle or whatever routine it is, teaching and observing and, prompting as least intrusively as possible. So, when I say prompted, most of the time or some of the time, that could be a gesture prompt, a visual text prompt, a point, a slight, tap or point in the direction that they need to go. Any one of those things would be considered a prompt. And you want to get the student to be more independent and need less of those prompts. So at the end of the day, or at the end of the circle time, you may assess and say, well, where were they, on level of independence? Well, today, they needed a lot of help when I was having them respond to a peer. So, they were not really so independent with that. So I'd give them, a 2. So here they have a 2. And then greeting the teacher, they did okay. They needed a visual prompt, so I'm going to give them a 3. And they were not really able to independently raise their hand during circle time, so they have a 2 on that one. Now we would write the date in the top here. So I would just write, today was today's date. So, October. And then tomorrow we're going to take data again. And tomorrow at the end of the day or at the end of the circle time, maybe they did a little bit better and they were able to do things more independently. And slowly they are showing that they are acquiring the skill. And over time, what you'll see is, sometimes they do better, sometimes they need a little bit more help. But what you want to see is the data showing that it's, getting better over time. So ultimately, you'll see a trend after a couple of days. And you could define mastery as when they've shown that they can perform the skill either 90 to 100% independently over 2 days. And then it turns into this really neat little visual graph.